Buonasera, welcome back to our Italian sessions. This video in particular will be uploaded both on the playlist of Italian for Beginners as lesson 31, lezione 31, and also on my channel together with the other videos, which are for different levels. So some are for intermediate and advanced, and some are for all levels. So do keep an eye on both the playlist and the channel, the other videos on the channel, because they could be useful for all. I hope you are enjoying the videos, and let me remind you that you are very welcome to add comments and ask questions, and also make suggestions for any topics that I haven't covered yet, or any topic that I have covered but you'd like to know more about. And also, I do private tuition. So if you're interested, let me know, get in touch, and we can have a chat about it. So today we are going to continue what I started in my last video, which is on the playlist under the name Italian for Beginners. So last time we started, I introduced the pronouns, the direct object pronouns. And unfortunately, they can't be done and understood just with one session, one video. So I'm adding to that. I think there will be, in fact, different parts. There will be different parts, all dedicated to pronouns. And the difference between pronouns, how to distinguish them, and how to use them correctly. So let's start sharing our document and having a look together at these pronouns. Let me just, here we are. So as I said, last video, which is at the moment is only on the playlist under the name of Italian for Beginners, lesson 30, where I talk about pronomi diretti or direct object pronouns, which is what we have here. I've used the color blue. In fact, here we could add direct, but I'm not going to, otherwise I'll make a mess with the, if I start adding, everything starts moving. So what we saw last time was this in Italian. Me, ti, Lola, ci, vi, li, le. We saw them, in fact, in a dialogue, and then we saw the grammar side of it, so where they are positioned in a sentence and what the meaning is. So if you remember, if I will see it, because I've got some examples later to see them in a sentence, very, very simple sentences, just to so we can concentrate exactly on these pronouns. So as I said in the previous video, pronouns are those little words which stand in place of a noun. A noun can represent a person, an object, so or somebody's name. So, for example, let's use this, the easiest one, really, like he or she, or instead of he or she, you can use somebody's name. So the name would be replaced by he or she, or him or her. Same for an object. It could be any object. So these are the nouns. We have to remember what nouns are. Any words that refers to a person or an object. So inanimate or animate nouns. So let's see. As I said, last time I talked about the direct object pronouns, but today I wanted to mainly compare the direct object pronouns that we saw last time with the subject pronouns, which is what we learned, what you learn at the very beginning. So these are the first pronouns that you learn. So I, you, he, she, we, you plural, and they. Those are the subject pronouns. Let's see a little bit better what they are. So subject pronouns. Pronomi soggetto. So the subject is that the person or an object that carries out the action in the sentence. So the verb will be conjugated according to the subject. As I said, the subject can be somebody's name, can be an object, any object, can be also not just when we're talking about people, not just a name, but for example, my cousin, my friend, the doctor, the neighbor, all these refer to people. And as I said, instead of using neighbor, doctor, cousin, etc., we can use he, she, they, we, etc. So that is the subject. Subject is the whoever carries out the action in the sentence. So the verb will be conjugated according to the subject. So for example, as you know now, in Italian, very often we do not use these subjects. We start immediately the sentence with a verb, because in Italian, the verbs are completely different according to the person, unlike in English. So that's why the verb is always very, very important. You need to learn the endings of the verbs, because you don't always have these pronouns to show you immediately who is carrying out the action. Instead, when we're talking about the object pronouns, we can say that the action carried out by the subject falls onto the object. So these pronouns are the object of the subject, really, the verb carried out by the subject. But let's see, these are simplified grammar description, but just to have an idea what everything is. And as I said, we'll see some examples where which will make a little bit clearer. But let's just see this as a reminder. At this point, you obviously you have learned how to use the subject pronouns. I don't think you ever get confused with this. So we have introduced some new pronouns. And remember that these are not the only ones, so there will be more. So it's better to do it gradually, understand what they do and how to use them. And then I think it's always a very good idea to compare them, to see them all together and see the similarities, which are only visual similarities. And that's why sometimes they can be confused one with another, especially out of context. But in the context, you need to be able, from the position, for example, the position of the pronouns in the sentence, especially in referring to the verb, but also to see the function of these pronouns in the sentence and avoid confusion and mistakes, especially translating. So the subject pronouns, as I said, we have seen them from lesson one, or lesson one we saw only one. We saw the first one, io, which is I. Then we have tu, which is you, singular. So this is when I am talking to a person directly. And then we have lui, which is he, lei, which is she. And then in English, we have it, when we're talking about an object. In Italian, there is a pronoun which does translate it, which is esso, but it's not really used in the spoken language. You would see it sometimes in books, in written language. And then we have, so these are the first, second, and third person singular. And now we have the first, second, and third person plural. So these basically, and remember they also, I said it before, but it's always good to repeat the same things. It's easier to remember and to memorize eventually. That this is always the same order. You will always find them in this order, And that's why also, for example, when you see conjugative verbs, even without the subject pronouns, you can immediately recognize the endings because the order is always the same. It does make sense, really. So here the plurals, we have noi, which is we, voi, which is you, plural, when we're talking to a group. And then we have loro, they, when we're talking about somebody else. So I think, so we said these ones are the ones who carry out the action. So the verb will be conjugated according to these pronouns. So I go, I do, and he, she, does, goes, etc. So these are the ones who are doing something, who are going somewhere. And normally, especially in English there is a more rigid word order. In Italian, the word order is a lot more flexible. However, let's say in a textbook sentence, the subject pronouns would be at the beginning of the sentence, normally followed by a verb. Keep in mind, this, we're talking about textbook, but between the subject and the verb, we can have other words. For example, in English, you can say, I always do. So between the subject, I, and the verb do, we have another word, always. So you can be too, set in these rules that we have subject, verb, and an object. This is in a simple sentence. So the object, instead, object pronouns, as I said in the previous video, come after the verb. If we're talking in English, so for example, I buy it, or I like her, or him, or them. So these are the object pronouns. In English, they will come after the verb, after the conjugated verb. In Italian, instead, they come before the conjugated verb. As I said, I have, you can see them in here. I have some examples just to see them in a sentence, not just by themselves. So as a little reminder, we have me in Italian, which is also me in English. Ti in Italian, which is you in English. Lo, masculine singular. La, feminine singular. In English, him, her, and also it in English. Ci, which is us. Vi, you plural. And then li, masculine plural. Le, feminine plural, which is them in English. So now, the confusion, sometimes the challenge, is to not confuse the ones that are the same visually in the subject and object pronouns. For example, in English, you have you as a subject and you as an object. It as a subject, it as an object. So you have to be careful. And then you have you, which is the you plural, again as a subject and as an object. So you have to distinguish in a sentence, you have to distinguish it in English first, and then it will be easier also to this when a translation, especially from English into Italian, if that's what you're doing. Otherwise, unless you're thinking immediately into Italian. So you have to make sure that you can distinguish them in English first. So, for example, this you here is different. Visually, it's the same, but it's, as a the function of these words in a sentence is completely different from this you. So this you, this blue you, is completely different from voi. The translation for voi is the green you. It's not the blue you. And you think, what? Visually, as I said, it's the same, but it is like confusing us and we. And also, this is something that I've seen many times. Sometimes, if I say, how do you say noi in English? And more than once, some students said us. No, it's not us, because noi does not mean us. It means we. Big difference. There is a big difference between we and us. So between the green and the blue. We and us are used in a completely different way. They have a different function in a sentence. They have a different position in the sentence. Exactly, it's like I and me. They're completely different. He and him, she and her, and they and them. I know there's some people using incorrectly or in a slang, but there is a different thing. We're not talking about slang, we're talking about correct English or correct language, not just English, but Italian as well. So this is what I mean when you need to be careful not to confuse the blue from the green. So if you see it out of context, the you out of context, it can be anything, but in a sentence, you have to think, does this you mean vi or does it mean voi? Does the you mean ti or does it mean tu? So how is it used in the sentence? Does this it, is it an object or is it a subject? Yeah, so that's something that you need to look at. You need to learn how to distinguish, as I said, all the different words in a sentence and their function in order to get it correct in Italian. So let's see both of them, the green and the blue, in a sentence. So remember, the green are the subject pronouns and the blue are the object pronouns. So here we have some very, very simple sentences. I've tried and used all of them. I may have missed a few, but it doesn't matter as long as we have an idea. So remember, the green are the subject, which were on the left. The blue are the objects, which are on the right in this page. So let's look at immediately the position. Can you see? So the subject, the green subject pronouns are at the very beginning in Italian, beginning of the sentence, and also in English. They are at the very beginning of the sentence. This, as I said, this is a textbook order because Italian, I repeat, is a lot more flexible when it comes to word order. So in general, in longer sentences, more complex sentences, you will see the subject pronouns at the end as well. But let's know this is a different topic. So for now, as we're looking at the textbook, the simple sentences. Instead, when it comes to the object pronouns, the blue ones, can you say in Italian, the position is here before the conjugated verb. Instead, in English, the blue ones, so the object pronouns, are after the conjugated verb. So when in English you say, I see him, or it being a masculine, sorry, I cannot stop the recording, I have to cat needs to come back in. Uh, so um, we're saying the English, so the blue ones, the direct object pronouns come after the conjugated verb. So let's I had just read the sentence. So if you want to say I see him, which is male, um, singular masculine, or I see it, talking about an object, singular masculine. In Italian, as I said earlier, we don't really have or use, to be precise, it for objects. We use the same for people and objects. So that would be lo. So lo means him and it. It when it is an object pronoun. So will be lo. And as you can see, the order is different. Io lo vedo is I see him or I see it. So as I said earlier, the verb is conjugated according to io. Io vedo. So for example, also, as I said, this is to replace a noun that we have mentioned before. Otherwise, we will know what we're talking about or who we're talking about. Let's go for Marco. Io vedo Marco. I see Marco. Instead of Marco, if we have mentioned before, so we know they were talking about him, we can say io lo vedo or I see him. Or let's say cat, we use the cat. Io vedo il gatto. Poor thing, it's an object. Or I see it. Masculine, singular. Exactly the same for the others. We have here tu ci vedi. So you as a subject, and in fact we have the verb vedi, which is conjugated according to tu. So you see. And then we have you see us. So us, it means ci. So for example, instead of ci, you can say tu vedi, me and somebody's name, Marco. You always Marco. So instead of using the name Marco and myself, we can say us. And that's what you have. So the ci in English, in Italian, object pronoun before the verb, in Italian afterwards. Another example, lui le vede, he, in green, sees them. Le, in particular in Italian, is feminine plural. So if we have two girls, lui vede Maria e Rosa, instead of, for example, having to repeat the names of the two girls, we can use le or them in English. Here, lei la vede, she sees her or it, if in Italian only, the object is in fact the object is an inanimate object, not a person. So she sees her or she sees it. Another example, as I said I try to use all of them so you can see them. Noi ti vediamo, so we see you. And voi mi vedete, you see me. Loro vi vedono, they see you. So, yeah, see, as I said, this is very, very simple sentences, and all these blue object pronouns, direct object pronouns, are replacing someone or something that we have mentioned already. Otherwise, we can't replace their replacement. So we need to know what or who we are talking about. And something also, as I said, And also, you've realized that the word order is different, so you need to think slightly different. But also, when Italians, in this case, or the other languages, they use the Italian word order, they need to get used to the English word order, so change it a bit. I would say, and this is something that I always suggest, or especially with other more complex constructions, I would say to almost not learn it by heart, but really repeat, especially these type of sentences or expressions that you need or that you use a lot. Repeat it many times by yourself. So it's like muscle memory. You remember, or your brain remembers these um, these words, the word order of these words. So if you say io lo vedo, instead of thinking every time, oh, I need I, and then I need him, and I need she, and then I need to change the word order. So instead of doing all this thinking, you know that I is io. You learn that him or it is lo, to see is, or I see is vedo. So write it down, or you have it written down here. Learn it by heart. Say it enough times that becomes automatic. Io lo vedo. Tu ci vedi. Lui le vede. Lei la vede. Noi ti vediamo. Voi mi vedete. Loro vi vedono. So it flows better instead of like separate the words. And also, by the way, if you remember in the previous, when I introduced the direct object pronouns, I said that the direct object pronouns, there are two types. Here we're only seeing the weak form. And the weak form, as I said, are the ones they will use the most, compared to the ones they will use when there is emphasis. We put emphasis on those. So we have the weak form. Weak, do you remember, is weak because they flow into the sentence, unlike when we're putting emphasis and we want that specific words, the specific pronoun to be the important, the crucial part of the sentence. So you're getting get the attention when there is emphasis. The attention is drawn to this towards this emphatic or strong form. Instead, here io lo vedo. It almost disappears. Tu ci vedi. Again, it disappears almost in the sentence. So I think this is it. I said I wanted to compare these two groups of pronouns. And this was I wanted to say, I said that almost a repeating really, just to finish. So remember the green ones are the subjects, is the subject, so the ones who carry out the action. The action is the verb, and the direct object pronouns instead is the object of the sentence. So it's the object of the verb. So the verb falls onto the object. So basically here, for example, I see him. So he is being seen by me. Basically, it's like it's almost it's not the victim of the verb. He falls onto the object. It is the one of the grammar explanations or descriptions. So yes, as I said, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to compare the two groups and make sure that things are a little bit clearer, and you learn how to distinguish the two groups out of context as well, and but especially in a sentence, and especially, as I said, the ones that are visually the same in English, especially. So you have to be careful when you're translating it. And I mentioned it's like the fact that many, when instead of when I mention noi, they say us instead of we. So be careful to that. You need to be precise because can end up making mistakes which are necessary. So I'll leave this in here. As I said, this will be lesson 31, lezione 31 in the playlist of Italian for Beginner, and then I will also add it to the channel. And I think I'll do, I'll try, it should be possible. I'll do just the same um, with the other parts which are related, these pronouns, because they're useful for all levels really. For the beginners which have never seen them before, and also it's a very good revision for the intermediates and sometimes also the advanced, because sometimes you get to a certain point and then you start forgetting some little things. So it's always good to have a little bit of revision. So I'll leave it here. As I said, feel free to write comment, ask questions, and I can answer in the comments if the reply is short, or if it needs a longer reply, and especially if it's a question that can be useful for everyone, then I can always add or publish another little video as a follow-up to clarify things that perhaps are not clear for more than one person. So I will see you on our next session. Bye bye. Ciao.